Shalom lekulam from Jerusalem. Stefano here from our studio of Israelities Podcast. I have two news for you. Number one, we are finally celebrating our first year of Israelities Podcast. I hope you are enjoying the show. Please write comments, email to me at podcast@kkm.network. But the second news is about our brand new YouTube page. You can just type Israelities and you will find our channel, or please just click on the link in the description box that you find down below this video. We are so excited, and please subscribe to our page, which will be a great support for us. And if you have any question, or if you want us to delve in some difficult topic with Pastor Chad and our pastors here at KKM, please feel free to text me, to email me, or to write a comment down below our YouTube page. Thank you so much.
ברוכים הבאים לכולם מירושלים. The new episode of Israelities Podcast, live from Jerusalem.
Shalom lekulam from Jerusalem. Stefano here for a brand new episode of Israelities Podcast. Today I'm so excited. We have a great guest, an amazing friend, an amazing leader. And today I want to introduce to all of you friends, Pastor Ray Ramirez.
Hey.
How are you?
Good, Stefano. Good to be with you today.
How was your flight?
Good. Actually, it was uneventful. That's what you want on an airplane,
Yeah.
is an uneventful flight. That's what it was.
How you doing with the jet lag?
Actually, it was not so bad this time. I actually, the first night I was able to sleep well, and so it's been
That's good.
not been bad.
You don't look tired.
Good. That's a good thing.
That's good. So listen, you have been in several shows and you have been recording several things as everybody's trying to squeeze you in and get some information and some gems of your knowledge and wisdom. But today, I just want you to relax.
Okay.
Israelities Podcast is a very informal. We
right.
just get very deep sometimes, but it's a very informal. So we talk on top of each other, no problem. We laugh, we make
No
jokes.
worries.
That's what we do.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
That's good. Well, some of our followers, they are from abroad, they are not from Israel, and probably some of them, they don't know who you are and a little bit of your story. So would you give us a little bit of an introduction?
Sure.
Why you are our friends, how you are connected to King of Kings?
Sure.
What's your history? What's your family? Your background?
Yeah. I was born and raised in Florida, Melbourne, Florida. My wife and I were offered the opportunity to come and serve in Israel in 2007 with the International Christian Embassy, ICEJ, which at that time I was coming to serve as a volunteer, as an assistant in production. That was my background, music production and recording, for the director of the music portion, the music director for the ICEJ. And so we figured this is going to be a wonderful experience for us to go in Israel and to learn. And we had been to Israel before. We had a love for Israel. But that was pretty much what we thought. And we were with that organization for about a year and a half. And the director left. And then I became the director. And then 5 years turned into 10 years. Almost 10 years. And then my wife and I had been attending King of Kings, had been participating. I participated every once in a while in worship ministry. I wasn't actively involved week after week in worship ministry. But just in the short story, Pastor Wayne, one time I see him, he says, "Hey, we need a worship leader to fill in. We have someone that's having to leave. Can you fill in for until we can find someone else?" That was 2014, I believe. And so I said, "Yeah, we'll try to make that work." So I was still with the ICJ. Started just to lead worship on Sundays with the worship team. And then over the course of the next few years, just transitioning, my wife and I felt the Lord was leading us in a new direction. I felt strongly called to pastoral ministry. I've really always felt like my calling was in pastoral ministry. And so we felt called to kind of lean back towards that. And the Lord opened the door for us to come and join the pastoral staff here at King of Kings Community Jerusalem. And we did that for almost 7 years, which was just an amazing time in our life of growth and development and just community. We love this community so much. There's so many people. I mean, just to come back and it's like, it's just hugging everybody and seeing it. That's just a wonderful feeling to realize the community and the love and the fellowship that we had here for so many years. So, again, during that time, I was the worship the worship pastor for KKCJ, as Pastor Chad, through the network, began to develop King of Kings worship at the network level for our worship ministry, and then served on the executive team in different capacities. For a while, I was in charge of the prayer tower and other parts of the ministry. So
Prayer Tower that today is called the
Summit. Correct.
Summit. Yeah,
Exactly right.
Perfect.
Exactly.
So, what are you doing now? Where are you, and where is your family, and what's ministry look like?
So, we returned in May of 2023 back to my hometown in Melbourne and to plant a King of Kings community congregation in Melbourne. And so that's what we've been actively doing. And the Lord has just been continued to open opportunities for us and just work through this process with us. We started meeting in our home in December of 2023. In this past December 2024, we had our final service meeting in our home, and we moved into a facility. We're renting a facility from another church on Saturdays to have our services. And so now the Lord has just opened the next opportunity for us to continue to grow. And again, it's growing still. I'm a person, I like to learn. I like to grow. And this is just a continuation of, I think, growth and development, both for Nikki, my wife, and I. God just continued to grow us and challenge us and to do new things. But then also to just take the experience that we've had and the experiencing and the things that we learned and then apply that into this new environment and ministry. So we're excited.
And Joanne and I had the opportunity to come and visit you last December.
Yes.
It was a great time. And we congratulate with you. And God is doing a tremendous job there with people, and there are so many people coming, and I know that you like to narrow down a certain group of people that are in need of community, like King of Kings Melbourne. Yeah. So I know you explained that several times off camera, but I would like you to explain who is like the group of people coming to the congregation. What's the need of the group of people?
Well, this is what we felt. So when we were here in Israel, Nikki and I, we experienced, and you experienced this here, I know, Stefano, it's a unique community here. I don't know that I've ever experienced anything like this in any other part of the world. It's a unique environment. It's a unique connection between Jewish people and Gentile people in a lot of ways, and fellowship and relationship and growing in the Lord. And we really wanted to try to replicate this there. And there are different expressions, but, again, you have you have an existing structure of like church ministry and how things work in church ministry in the United States. And then you have some established messianic ministry, but I don't know that either one of them necessarily really captures what we've experienced here. And so when we felt like if there's a need for it here, there's probably a need for it there. And we have found that that's the truth. There's people like, this is what I've been looking for, a place where I can come and fellowship. We can be taught the biblical backgrounds of our faith. We can celebrate the feasts. We can honor Shabbat. We can just understand from a Jewish perspective where our faith comes from and what this is. And again, for a Jewish person, we want you to come in and feel like, be Jewish. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to become something else. But then also on the opposite side, for a Gentile person, come and be a Gentile. It's okay.
Yeah.
And that's all right. We value both of us together. And I think that's the beauty of this. My wife and I really have talked about this. It's like a marriage. A man and a woman individually have their individual strengths, but actually what's beautiful is the two together in unity are actually stronger than the two individuals separately. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So there's something that happens within the unity of the two individuals, and they need to be individuals. She doesn't have to become a man, and he doesn't have to become a woman, although that's what the culture would like to do sometimes these days.
Yeah.
But they need to be the individuals that they are. But it's in the unity of their coming together is actually where they're the strongest. And I think that's what we want to see. We want to see the body come together, Gentiles and Jews together, and the unity of that, and see God be able to move in a new way in that context.
That's great. I was thinking about some of the clashes that we have when we minister in this kind of environment, because we have sometimes people that goes to the two extremes.
Sure.
So some people goes into replacement theology. It's just for the church. It's not for the Jews anymore. It was for the Jews. It's not for the Jews any longer.
Exactly right.
And then on the other side, you have the one law, approach into we need to copy and paste everything that the law says, and if you don't do that, you cannot be saved.
Exactly right.
Do you have the same experience in Melbourne? Do you have people that come with the two extremes approaches?
We have heard, different. And thankfully, again, within our community at this point, we have very mature people. We've been very blessed. And again, I've tried to really, over the last year, even in our teaching, to just lay the foundations of who we are as a ministry. And that it really comes from everything that we've received here in Jerusalem. And lay the foundations for who we are as a ministry, how we operate as part of the ministry network of King of Kings. And I think it's gone really well, and I think people have really received it, because I think, again, that's people are looking for this type of fellowship, this type of community. But there are obviously challenges to the other ways of understanding theologically these things within the wider body.
Now, in your journey, you have been born and raised in the United States, in Florida. Then you came here for almost 2 decades, almost 20 years here, and then you felt from God to return there. Now, of course, Ray is a different person now, right? Because you have an experience of Israel like is happening to me. You have been exposed to something that anybody else in the West has been ever exposed.
Sure.
So how does it affected your way to do ministry before and now?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's given me a way to see ministry differently that I probably would have never seen if I had never been here. You know what I mean? I would never have seen that, there's another way that this can be accomplished, or there's another way to do this that I probably would never have seen if I had not come and been in the communities here and been in the context here. And I think that's the challenge sometimes. I was just thinking earlier, was talking about the things that are happening in Israel right now with the release of hostages and things. And it's interesting having left Israel and then come back into this environment, because a lot of this happened, the events of October 7th and all these things happened after we had already left, and then coming back into this and realizing how deeply these things affected the dynamic of the people, the soul really of the people here. And it's hard when you're separated from that to really grasp that. And then I come back and you're like, wow, I really can sense and feel how deeply this has impacted the people. But when I'm in the United States, I don't get that connection. You know what I'm saying?
Makes sense, yeah.
I don't have the same depth of understanding of how deeply it impacted. Then you come back and you're like, wow, okay, I really sense here, being here now among the people, how deeply this impacted. And I think that's the thing. It's difficult to describe or to explain unless you've come into something and experience. It's difficult to truly express that to someone who's never walked in that place, if that makes sense.
Do you leave... or do you experience a lot of contrast among the people in the United States towards Israel? So, like, Israel deserves what is happening, or do you have anybody in your congregation that is more against Israel, that pro-Israel?
Not in our congregation, but I think you do see it in the culture in the United States, the shift, especially amongst the, let's say, 20 to 30-year-old generation, that age, that are looking for truth. You see the challenges that the culture is placing on them for social justice and rightness and these kinds of things, and that puts that tension to see right from wrong in a real way. Does that make sense? So I see it. It's not so much in our community, but you do sense it in the culture in the United States as you look around and you see the shifting among the whites. And it seems to be in a younger generation that it's really being more impacted by this in our world today, especially in the United States.
What are you trying to apply in your congregation things that you have learned in Israel and now you're trying to apply in your congregation in Melbourne, and how the Gentile worlds, I mean, Jewish people and Jewish families or Israelis that just join the group, they are familiar with what you are bringing up.
Sure.
But you have also, as I have experienced and been there, a group of people that are like Gentiles that don't have a clue about these things. So how can you bridge that? It's easier to bridge it here in doing ministry in Israel. And the Gentiles are coming into a setting and environment and they are happy to learn. But now we're speaking about a different country and you're trying to establish something that is more Jewish.
Yeah. No, I think it's really just trying to take steps to say, what does the Bible say about this? Let's look at this together. What does the Bible teach us about this? And even going back to foundations of faith, like I feel like one of the things that we started to do we started a small group called Foundations, and
you wrote the material, right?
Well, yeah. We kind of I drafted some ideas, and we felt like, okay, we're gonna try this through with a small group. But looking at, like, even if I go back to the Apostles' Creed, okay, if I go back to the Apostles' Creed, which is, at best, 3rd century, maybe earlier, okay? The Apostles' Creed starts with, I believe in God the Father, the creator of heaven and earth, okay? So even for the early believers at that time, they're dealing with the reality of, I believe in God who created, before they even mention Yeshua. Because foundationally, everything that Yeshua came to do is built on the foundation that God is the creator of everything. So, but it seems like in Christian ministry today, we want to start kind of in the middle of the book and say, you're a sinner, and here's this guy that came to save you. It makes sense?
Absolutely. That's the way I grew up. That was the clash. I mean, if you ask the same question I ask you, that would be my answer. Because I grew up with, like, everything starts with Yeshua. And then even when you read in Bereshit, when you read in Genesis, what was the light before the sun was created is Yeshua. Everything starts with Yeshua, which is not wrong.
But if that's truly the case, then why does he come and say, I come and I speak only what my Father says? You see what I'm saying? He himself is saying, I'm here in the authority of my Father. I'm here basically presenting to you what my Father told me to speak. So if I'm cutting all that pre-development foundational part of the Word of God out, then I'm starting in the middle, then none of this is going to make a lot of sense. So going back to some foundational things, who is God? Why did he do this? Where do we come from? Why? And understand all these things that, again, I believe in a lot of ways the Jewish people have carried this knowledge for generations and generations. But for whatever reason within the wider Christian community, it's kind of been, to the degree that I remember hearing one teacher at one point said, the church needs to unhitch itself from the Old Testament.
Which it happened with the other creeds. I mean, the Apostolic Creed is the closest to the Jewish truth, but then the other creeds, they're completely detached.
They detach. And I think this is the problem. So for us, it's trying to bring people back to, let's start from the origin of where we came from, what this is all about, why we'll come to, from that understanding, we'll come to why the Messiah came, why he was here, what his purpose was, and what he accomplished. Because for me, the work of the Messiah is actually about restoring right relationship to God that existed prior. That was the purpose of his work.
Which, if you don't get it, is impossible to understand the restoration.
Exactly.
Right?
What am I restored to?
Yeah, exactly. So how is people responding to that?
Wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah, no, the response has been
Can you give us
great.
some examples, if you can?
Wow.
Without names, maybe. How people respond, comments? Or...
I think people have been really encouraged in a way to hear these things. And I think if there's already something there, then it reaffirms that for them. If it's not, it challenges them to think, I never thought of that. I never considered it that way. And again, it's our hope. But, we're looking at this also not even just from someone that may have been in faith for a while, but also someone that has never even heard the gospel message, let's say, to start them in a place building on a foundation of truth. As they grow in faith and walk in relationship with God. And again, I think it's sowing into something that can be built upon. And that's our objective.
I would like to ask you about the other extreme. So people, they are used to attend the synagogue in the United States,
Okay.
but you are not a synagogue, right?
Right.
So how do you speak to them? How do you come across with the message of the gospel to people that have been raised in a synagogue setting in the United States?
Sure. I think for us, to the Jewish people that fellowship with us, what we want to create is a space where they feel comfortable being a Jewish person. Mm-hmm. They don't have to come into our community and feel like, okay, well, now I have to give all of that identity as a Jewish person away. Again, I think it's going back to the marriage analogy. That's like a husband and wife coming together and say, well, all of your women, all your femininity, you need to get rid of that now. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? No, that's not the point. You see what I'm saying? We come in as to who we are, and we become a fellowship together. And I think so. We want to create, and it is a balance. You know what I mean? It is a balance, because it's a balance between a Jewish person. So, for instance, like for Pesach, for Passover, we look at it as the Jewish people in our community. You need to lead this. This is your mandate as a Jewish person. We'll undergird you. We'll walk with you in this, and we'll celebrate with you. But really, this is something for you to carry. So I encourage some of the leaders that are Jewish in our community, run with this. You run with it. I'm with you. We're gonna celebrate this together. We're gonna honor this festival together. But I need you to run with it. You to lead it. And I want to encourage that in them.
That's great.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And on the other side, to a Gentile person that comes in, I want them to feel like you don't need to become something different. It's okay. You're a Gentile. You can grasp, as Pastor Chad says, it's the have to and the get tos.
Yes.
Right? It's that language. And you can embrace these things, but you can come in and embrace as God reveals to you, and as He brings these things into your life, and what becomes rich to you, you embrace.
Yeah.
And you can take. So that's what we're trying to do.
I would like to shift on a little bit the topic now,
Sure.
Because everybody knows that you are a great worship leader, musician, producer, but I don't want to focus our talk today about that. I know other people will do that, and I'm really glad that other people will do that. But I would like to turn into your prayer lifestyle. Now, in front of me, there is a person that was in Florida, and then God told him to come to Israel. And then again, you came for almost 2 decades. And then you heard God's voice again saying, now it's time to go back to your hometown. Mm-hmm. So that process, spiritually, how did it happen? I know also your wife, Nikki, she's very prophetic. Mm-hmm. And how, as a couple, you brought your family here. Your 3 kids, they're all born here in Israel, right? Mm-hmm. They were all born here in Israel. And now moved the whole family back to the United States.
Yes.
I think our followers and viewers want to know, how can you be so aware of God's voice in moving? Not just you, because if you are an individual, sometimes it's easier. Okay, I just leave the country and go. But now it's a full family, right, rooted in Israel for 20 years, and now go back to United States.
Right.
There must be a great prayer life and sense of God's voice, because it doesn't make sense to me. It's not just your whims. It's not just your desires. Oh, I'm fed up with Israel. I want to move to United States. And I know, even I wasn't there, that the process has been very painful for you emotionally, and for other people like Joanna still crying, what is Ray?
No, it was difficult to leave. I wish I could sit here with you, Stefano, and say that I feel like my prayer life is like, woo, that it's my prayer life is simple. And actually, I remember there was a time I had a mentor that I would meet with, and he shared with me, write down, like, do an evaluation of your life yearly, and where areas that you feel like you could grow in. And just look at those things and then try to take some proactive steps. And I remember one year I wrote down, I want to grow in prayer. And I began to read books like, I don't know if you've ever read The Necessity of Prayer. Mm-hmm. And it's an incredible book on prayer. Yeah. And I began to challenge myself in some ways in prayer. And I think prayer for us, if we're honest with ourselves, is an ebb and flow. Mm-hmm. and there's days that you feel like, yeah, I nailed it. And there's days you feel like, oh, I'm a failure. But I think for Nikki and I, it really has been to try and maintain a posture of, God, we don't want to stop listening to you. We don't ever want to come to a place in our life where we say, God, it's good. Don't tell us anything else because we don't want you to mess up, what's good here. Do you know what I mean? And we had this conversation, I think, in Modin the other day about inviting God to move. That there's this posture of inviting God in to speak into our lives, even though it may make us uncomfortable, cause that we may not like what he's going to say or what he's going to ask us to do. But we still maintain this posture of, God, I invite you to speak. And I think that's what Nikki and I have tried to maintain, is this posture to say, God, we don't ever want to stop listening to you because we feel like life is really good here. We want to maintain an ear that's attentive to when you're leading and calling us. We'll go if you tell us, because we know if we're walking in obedience that we know you're with us. And that's the safest place you can be. And so that's just kind of been our heart, I think. As you said, my wife is very sensitive, so she usually gets insights into things long before I do. And then she has patience with me to come to the reality and understanding. Okay, yeah. So, but that's happened many times. But but I think that's probably part of it for us, is just wanting to hear God.
I would like to ask you what I called usually theological season. In which theological season are you? What God theologically saying to you? Is there any topic that God is bringing you in this season?
Yes. Probably the biggest one right now for me, Stefano, is authority. This has been a big. So it began. We do a Bible, like a family Bible study time in the mornings with our children. They're homeschooled, so they're with us, and we read through. So their homeschool curriculum will have different readings that they do, and so when we were transitioning back to the United States, we had started into the Gospel of Matthew, and we were continuing that in the United States. And more than once, as we were reading with our kids, Nikki and I would look at each other, and this word authority would come up in the Gospel of Matthew, and it would just keep popping up. And I'm like, there it is again, there it is again, there it is again. And so this just really became a word in the last year for me that the Lord just continues to highlight. This concept of authority, submission to authority, how Yeshua walked in that, how he submitted himself to the authority of the Father, and how then he taught his disciples to do the same thing, how to carry authority, how to walk. And so I came up with 2 principles for our congregation about authority. Number 1, authority is good. God created it. If you look at creation, he said it's evident there. He gives Adam authority over the created beasts, and he says rule over them. Right.
Great.
Even before that, if you look at when he created the lights, he says he created the great light to do what? To rule over or have authority over the day, and the lesser to have authority over the night. So for me, there's this connection between God creating separation of things and boundaries and authority. And this is something the Lord has been speaking to me. And I think it's actually an important topic for us, I think, in our day.
Yeah.
So that's my kind of theological thread right now.
That's powerful. And thank you for so many snapshots of teachings here in the podcast is great. Podcast that you helped me set it up together.
That's right.
I mean, I wouldn't. We actually in February we are like 1 year
That's
that
amazing.
we are recording, and
Amazing.
1 year, maybe a bit more, that we just get in touch the first time, how to set up the podcast, what's the topic, what's the name.
Yeah.
And so thank you so much.
Hey, my pleasure.
1 year later, you are here finally recording an episode, but I publicly say thank you for being with me, teaching me how to do it, how to be on top of things.
My pleasure.
And I think people really enjoy That's what the email says when people send emails or commenting on YouTube or commenting on the Instagram page. So thank you so much for your time.
My joy.
You're going to stay a few more days here in Israel and continuing to bless all the communities and all the Keilot that we have here at King of Kings. So thank you for your service. You must missing probably your family. So thank you for the sacrifice of being here. May God bless you. Is there any last advice you want to give to our viewers, our followers or listeners? Most of the time there are simple stuff, but I think that nowadays we forgot about the simple stuff and we all want to do complicated things.
I'll tell you, I'll share with you something that I shared with our congregation last Saturday. And I said, and this ties into, again, what we're talking about, prayer. Try to take 15 minutes of your day. Just start with 15 minutes of your day once a week and be quiet and listen. That's
so good.
It's not a big step. It's a small step, but but what you make time for, you'll do. And in 15 minutes, make time to just, get your Bible, but just sit. And, as Samuel told, or not Samuel, as Samuel was told, when here I am, Lord. And just invite the Lord to speak to you.
Yeah.
Invite the Lord into your life to speak to you. And he will, but you need to present yourself and make time for it. So.
That's so good. Thank you so much, Pastor Ray, for your time.